Today, we're going to be talking about moving your property tax, lower property tax when you sell a house and buy another house in California, and you're over age 55 and a half during that transaction. Basically, you're going from one house in California, selling it, buying another one, and what we're going to talk about is maintaining a lower property tax basis on the new property. All the way back in June of 1978, California had a law passed called Proposition 13 that allowed for lower real estate taxes and have that as a fixed rate of income tax. Before that time, my father had a 8-unit apartment complex, and he was telling me that every time the county wanted to do something, they just raised the taxes, and there was inflation, and a lot of seniors on fixed income and other people lost properties because of over-enthusiastic property tax assessments. Then Proposition 13 was passed by the voters, and it allowed for the property tax rates to be set at 1% of the cost value of the property, and it can be increased at a rate of 2% a year for an inflation factor. The actual property tax varies based on the county. The rate is normally 1% of the value to 1.29% of the value. And the longer you own the property, the lower relatively you will have to pay property tax because of the time value of money. And for example, if you bought a house in 1956 for $20,000 and now it's worth $2 million, well, your property tax is going to be lower than most all of your neighbors who bought their houses after that date. So it does help in California when you keep your principal residence for a long period of time. And then if you were to sell that house and buy a new residence, then your property tax would go up. Let's say you bought another house for $2 million, then your property tax would be around 1.2% of the $2 million, which in my example would be a huge increase in property taxes to the estimated amount of about $20,000 a year or more in property taxes. First, we had another proposition going through where it was Proposition 60 that allowed people that were over 55, they could sell their principal residence, buy another house, and transfer that lower property tax rate basis to another property as long as they bought in the same county that they sold their previous residence. Then came along Proposition 90, and that was an improvement because people over 55 could sell their home and buy another house in one of only six specified counties. Then in November 2020, the voters in California passed Proposition 19, and the aspect we're looking at, particularly in this material, is a transfers of people selling their house. They're over 55, they buy a new house, they bring their old property tax basis with them, which saves them a lot of money. But the new law with Proposition 19 allows the individuals to buy another property in any of California's 58 counties. So it's really expanded out, and it's beneficial for those people who are age 55 or over, and they're selling their principal residence. Okay, so you're anywhere in the state is now possible to buy the new residence. If you keep your old property, don't move, your property tax will only increase about 2% a year. And this computation that the county assessors use from your original cost basis, it goes up 2% a year is the maximum, and they use a term called factored base year value, and that's how the property tax goes up each year. If the properties go down in value during any time, you can have your property reassessed and your property tax lowered. I mentioned that it only can increase 2% a year for the property tax, except if they lowered your property tax once. Then they can bring it back up to this factored base year value. Now, with the Proposition 19, if you sell your property and buy a new residence within 1 year, you can actually replace your residence and keep your same property tax value up on the new property as far as 105% of the replacement purchase price. And that's to allow inflation on your repurchase. And if it's your second year after you sold your principal residence, you can claim exemption up to 110% of the cost basis on you're acquiring the property. The Proposition 19 changed Revenue and Taxation Code 69.6, and also made adjustments to California's Constitution. So to qualify, you sell one house, buy another one, must have the transaction completed within 2 years. And there's other requirements. If you were building your house, and both properties need to be considered a principal residence. So after you buy your new property, you'll have to file another homeowner's exemption form with the county that verifies that you live in the new property, and that form allows a $7,000 reduction in assessment in property tax. It only saves about $70 per year. Now, the computation to get what you're trying to do is keep your property taxes low and buy a new property. So now, when, let's say, example, you have $100,000 property assessed value in your old home, and after 20, 30 years, it's gone up in value to $2 million. In this example, let's say you sold that old home for $2 million, turned around and bought another home for $2 million or less than $2 million, and the result is your property tax assessment for your new property would remain at the $100,000 assessment that you had previously, which might entail $12,000 a year or $1,200 a year in property taxes, which would be extremely low compared to the over $20,000 a year in property tax on a purchase of property for $2 million. Now, when you pay more, let's say under the old rules under Proposition 60, you could only use this rule if you bought another house that was equal or lower in value. The rules have changed. Now you can buy a property that is greater than the sale price of the property you're selling, and it just adjusts your property tax according to this example. So your old house had assessed value of $100,000, sold it for $2 million. You turned around and bought another replacement residence for $2,050,000. So overall, your values had changed from your old to your new. It increased by $50,000. So the tax impact on this transaction now results in a new assessment of $150,000. because of that increase in purchase price. So when this transaction takes place, you just go through your normal escrow. After escrow closes, you obtain a form BOE 19B for transfer of your base year value to replacement residence when you're 55 years or older. And you need to be careful to get the right form. That is after 2020 or April 2021, because this form has been recently revised. So, and all you do is you sell the residence, buy the new one, and then you claim this exclusion, and they will look up the tax on your old residence. They will look at the sale price of the old residence, sale price of the new residence, and allow that reduction in property tax. And overall, in this kind of transaction, on the average, I'd say people are saving $10,000, $15,000 a year by selling and buying under this exclusion, rather than just a normal purchase and sale of real property. And this only applies to people who are age 55 years or older. So I hope that explains how this segment of the tax law works. If you have questions, feel free to call our office. We'll be happy to answer questions on this form, any other real estate form, or income tax or estate planning issues.